The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the pristine banking hall of Unity Trust Bank in Victoria Island, Lagos. Outside, the morning traffic roared. Yellow Danfo buses weaving between sleek SUVs, hawkers shouting their wares, and the constant pulse of a city that never truly rested. Inside, however, the air was cool, sanitized, filled with the quiet murmur of transactions and the soft clicking of keyboards. It was 9:47 a.m. when the automatic glass doors slid open with a smooth whisper, and an old woman stepped inside. The security guard noticed her first. His hand instinctively moved toward his baton as he assessed her appearance. She wore a faded yellow wrapper that might have been beautiful once, the Ankara print still visible beneath layers of dust and grime. Her blouse, once white, had turned a dingy gray, with mud stains climbing up from the hem. On her feet were mismatched slippers, one blue, one brown, both with soles so worn they barely protected her from the ground. Her hair, completely gray, stood in wild tufts around her head as if she hadn't combed it in weeks. In her trembling hands, she clutched a small black handbag, fake leather, peeling at the corners, with a broken zipper held together by a safety pin. Every head in the banking hall turned. Behind the customer service desk, 3 young women sat in matching navy blue uniforms, their hair styled in identical sleek weaves, their nails painted in coordinating shades of pink and burgundy. They had been chatting about the upcoming weekend party at one of Lagos's exclusive clubs when the old woman entered. Chioma, the most senior of the 3, narrowed her expertly penciled eyes. "Who let this woman inside?" she whispered, not bothering to lower her voice much. Beside her, Ngozi giggled behind her hand. Maybe she's lost, or she came to beg for transport fare. The third woman, Blessing, simply rolled her eyes and returned to scrolling through her phone, clearly uninterested in the interruption to her morning routine. The old woman, whose name was Mrs. Adiz Nwosu, though no one in that hall knew it yet, stood quietly just inside the entrance. Her eyes, surprisingly bright and alert in her weathered face, scanned the banking hall slowly, taking in every detail. The marble floors, the leather waiting chairs, the large portrait of the bank's board of directors on the wall, and most importantly, the staff. She moved forward slowly, her worn slippers making soft shuffling sounds against the polished floor. Her voice, when she spoke, was gentle but clear. "Good morning, my daughters. Please, I came to make a transaction." The laughter from behind the customer service desk was instant and cruel. Chioma covered her mouth with perfectly manicured fingers, her shoulders shaking with suppressed giggles. Ngozi didn't even bother to hide her amusement, laughing openly. Blessing looked up from her phone long enough to sneer. "Transaction," Chioma said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Madam, I beg, this is a bank, not a charity center. Oh, maybe she wants to deposit her firewood," Ngozi added, setting off another round of laughter. The customers waiting in line shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, embarrassed by the spectacle. Others pulled out their phones, already anticipating something worth recording for social media. Mrs. Nwosu didn't flinch. She simply moved closer to the counter, her voice remaining steady despite the humiliation. "I said I came to make a transaction. Please attend to me." Chioma leaned forward on her desk, her perfectly drawn eyebrows raised in exaggerated disbelief. "Mama, even if you want to make a transaction, where's your account number? Or do you want to open an account with Sand?" The laughter was louder this time, echoing across the banking hall. Even some of the customers couldn't help smiling, caught up in the casual cruelty of the moment. The security guard, a tall, muscular man named Emeka, who had been watching the exchange, finally stepped forward. "Madam, please, you cannot stand here disturbing our customers. Let's go outside. If you need help, I can give you something small." Mrs. Nwosu turned to look at him, and something in her gaze made him pause. Her eyes weren't the desperate, pleading eyes of a beggar. They were calm, assessing, almost authoritative. "I'm not disturbing anyone," she said quietly. "I simply asked to be attended to like every other customer." Blessing finally spoke up, her tone sharp with irritation. "Please, security, Remove her before she brings bad luck to this place. Just look at how she's dressed. Even her bag looks like it came from a refuse dump. Ah, true, Ngozi added. That handbag has seen better days. Probably older than this building SEF. The guard hesitated. Something about the old woman's bearing didn't fit the profile of a typical street beggar. But his supervisors had been clear. Keep the banking hall free of undesirables. The bank catered to Lagos's elite, and appearances mattered. Madam, please, he said more gently this time, reaching for her elbow. Let's go outside. Leave me, Mrs. Nwosu said, and this time her voice carried a sharp edge that made the guard's hand freeze in midair. For a moment, the entire banking hall fell silent. The command in her tone was unmistakable, undeniable. This was not the voice of someone powerless. But then Chioma's laugh broke the spell. So she can even shout SEF. Mama get power. Security, a beg carry her comet before she start to curse us. The guard, emboldened by the laughter and feeling he had a safe face, gently but firmly took Mrs. Nwosu's arm and began guiding her toward the door. She didn't resist. She allowed herself to be led, but her head remained high, her dignity intact despite the humiliation. As she walked past the row of customers, she heard their whispers. See how dirty she is. She's probably mentally unstable. These beggars are becoming too bold. Outside, the Lagos sun hit her like a physical force. The security guard released her arm once they were beyond the glass doors, looking almost apologetic now that they were out of sight of the banking hall. So, mananta, it. You understand. I'm just doing my job. Mrs. Nwosu said nothing. She simply stood there for a moment, looking through the transparent glass walls at the people inside who had just humiliated her. Not one of them knew. Not one of them suspected. The woman they had just thrown out like garbage was Mrs. Adiz Nwosu, founder and chief executive officer of Unity Trust Bank, the very institution whose staff had just mocked her. Slowly, deliberately, she opened her worn handbag. Her weathered fingers pushed aside a folded handkerchief, a small Bible with cracked leather binding, and a packet of tissues. Then she pulled out something that seemed wildly out of place with her appearance. A brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max in midnight blue, its pristine surface gleaming in the sunlight. She unlocked it with her fingerprint and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Emmanuel Okafor, branch manager. She tapped the call button and raised the phone to her ear. It rang twice. Hello. A man's voice, slightly distracted. Emmanuel, Mrs. Nwosu said, her voice cold and precise. Come to your branch. Now. There was a pause. Then, Ma? Mrs. Nwosu? Is that? Wait, where are you? Are you at the branch? Outside, she said simply. I expect you here in 10 minutes. She ended the call without waiting for a response. Emmanuel Okafor's black Mercedes E-Class screeched into the bank's parking lot exactly 8 minutes later. He practically fell out of the driver's seat, his tie askew, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the car's air conditioning. He was a short, stocky man in his mid-40s, wearing an expensive navy blue suit that strained slightly across his middle. As he rushed toward the entrance, his eyes darted around frantically, searching for Mrs. Nwosu. He spotted her standing in the shade near the entrance, still holding her worn handbag, looking as disheveled as ever. His heart nearly stopped. Ma, he called out, rushing to her side. Ma, I came as fast as I could. What? Why are you? Have you been inside already? Mrs. Nwosu looked at him with that same calm, assessing gaze. Yes, Emmanuel. I've been inside. Would you like to know what happened? Emmanuel's face paled. Ma, I can explain. Whatever happened, I'm sure we can. Let's go inside, she interrupted. I like to see my branch properly. Emmanuel swallowed hard and nodded. As they walked toward the entrance, he pulled out his phone and fired off a quick text to the staff group chat. CEO is here. Everyone stand at attention. Now, inside the banking hall, the message caused instant chaos. Chioma dropped her phone. Ngozi's eyes went wide. Blessing actually gasped out loud. CEO is coming? Chioma hissed. Today? Nobody told us there was an inspection. They scrambled to straighten their desks, adjust their uniforms, paste on professional smiles. The other staff members rushed to their positions. Even the customers sensed something significant was happening and quieted down. The glass doors slid open. Emmanuel entered first, looking stiff and nervous. And behind him walked the same old woman they had mocked and thrown out less than 30 minutes ago. For several seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The banking hall was frozen in a tableau of shock and dawning horror. Chioma's mouth fell open. The carefully applied lipstick suddenly seemed garish on her face, which had gone pale beneath her makeup. Ngozi made a small, strangled sound in the back of her throat. Blessing's phone slipped from her fingers and clattered on the desk. Emmanuel turned to face his staff, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "This is Mrs. Adiz Nwosu, founder and chief executive officer of Unity Trust Bank. I believe some of you have already met her this morning." The silence was absolute, suffocating. Mrs. Nwosu moved slowly into the banking hall, her worn slippers still making those same soft, shuffling sounds against the marble floor. But now those sounds seemed impossibly loud in the dead silence. She surveyed the space, her bank, her empire, with those sharp, bright eyes. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "Don't apologize for them, Emmanuel. They don't know what they've done yet." She turned to face the customer service desk, where Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing sat frozen like deer in headlights. "I stood in this banking hall for 15 minutes, Mrs. Nwosu began, her voice steady but heavy with disappointment. 15 minutes asking to be served. Not one person treated me with basic human dignity. Instead, you laughed at me. You mocked my appearance. You questioned whether I was mentally stable. You compare my handbag to refuse." Chioma's eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "And you," Mrs. Nwosu turned to Emeka, the security guard, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "You dragged me out. I understand you were following orders, following protocol. But tell me, does our protocol say to physically remove elderly women who are doing nothing more than asking for service?" I didn't. I'm so sorry." Emeka stammered. "The problem," Mrs. Nwosu continued, her voice growing firmer, "is not that you didn't recognize me. The problem is that you saw an elderly woman in shabby clothes and immediately decided she was worthless. Unworthy of your time. Unworthy of basic respect." She walked slowly to the customer service desk, her eyes moving from Chioma to Ngozi to Blessing. "Tell me, what if I had been a regular customer? What if I had been someone's grandmother who saved her pension money in this bank? Would she deserve this treatment? Would any human being?" Tears were streaming down Chioma's face now, her makeup running in dark streaks. "Ma, please, we're so sorry. You didn't mean to show me who you really are?" Mrs. Nwosu interrupted. "You didn't mean to reveal that when you think no one important is watching, this is how you treat people." She reached into her worn handbag again and pulled out 3 ID cards, pristine staff identification cards that looked brand new. "I had these made yesterday," she said softly. "New designs, with enhanced security features. I was going to surprise the staff today with the upgrade." She placed them on the desk with deliberate care. "But I think I'll need them for someone else now." She turned to Emmanuel. "Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing are dismissed. Effective immediately. They will collect their final salaries at the end of the month." "No." Chioma fell to her knees right there behind the counter. "Please, Ma. Please. It was a mistake. We didn't know." "That's exactly the point," Mrs. Nwosu said quietly. "You didn't know, and yet you judged me anyway." Ngozi joined Chioma on the floor, both women sobbing. "Ma, please. We have families. We have responsibilities. Please give us another chance." Blessing was crying silently at her desk, her head in her hands. Mrs. Nwosu felt a tug in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "Emmanuel will process your terminations. Security, please escort them to collect their personal belongings." As the 3 women were led away, still crying, the banking hall remained silent. The customers who had laughed earlier now looked ashamed. The other staff members stood with their heads bowed, grateful it wasn't them, but knowing it easily could have been. Mrs. Nwosu turned to face the entire banking hall, staff and customers alike. "Let this be a lesson to everyone here," she said, her voice carrying clearly. "The way you treat people when you think it doesn't matter is the truest measure of who you are. Wealth, poverty, beauty, age, none of these things determine a person's value. We are all human beings deserving of dignity and respect." She paused, her eyes moving across the faces before her. This bank was built on the principle that everyone deserves access to financial services, regardless of their status. But if my own staff can't embody that principle, then we have failed. We have failed completely. With that, she turned and walked toward the private elevator that would take her to the executive offices on the top floor. Emmanuel rushed to press the button for her. As the elevator doors closed, Mrs. Nwosu finally allowed her shoulders to slump slightly. Her reflection in the polished elevator walls showed her as she truly was, an old woman in dirty clothes, looking tired and sad. But her eyes still burned with the fire of someone who had built an empire from nothing and refused to let anyone diminish her worth. 3 weeks had passed since what the bank staff now quietly referred to as the incident. The story had spread through Lagos's banking community like wildfire, a cautionary tale whispered in break rooms and over afterward drinks. Unity Trust Bank's Victoria Island branch had become notably more courteous. Staff members now treated every customer, regardless of appearance, with meticulous respect. But the change felt hollow to Mrs. Nwosu. It was fear-driven, not genuine. She sat in her corner office on the top floor of the Unity Trust Bank headquarters in Ikoyi, overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The view was spectacular. Water glinting in the afternoon sun, boats moving lazily across the surface, the city sprawling endlessly in all directions. But Mrs. Nwosu wasn't seeing the view. She was seeing 3 faces, Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing, crying as they were escorted from the building. Her personal assistant, a efficient young woman named Amara, knocked softly before entering with a stack of mail. "Ma, these arrived for you today. Should I sort them?" Mrs. Nwosu waved her hand absently. "Just leave them. I'll look through them later." As Amara set down the pile and turned to leave, Mrs. Nwosu noticed something. Many of the envelopes were handwritten, the addresses slightly smudged, the handwriting shaky. "Amara, wait. Where did these come from?" "The regular mail, Ma. Some were hand-delivered to reception. They've been coming every day for the past 2 weeks." After Amara left, Mrs. Nwosu pulled the pile closer. She picked up the first envelope. The return address simply said, "From Chioma." Her hand hesitated over the envelope. Part of her didn't want to open it. What could this girl possibly say that would matter? But another part of her, the part that had founded this bank on principles of redemption and second chances, couldn't ignore it. She opened the envelope carefully and pulled out several sheets of lined paper, covered in neat, small handwriting. "Dear Mrs. Nwosu, asterisk, I know I have no right to write to you. I know I don't deserve your time or attention. But I need to tell you what has happened since that day. Not because I expect anything, but because you need to know what your lesson taught me. Asterisk. Asterisk, since I lost my job, I've been surviving on borrowed money from neighbors. My younger siblings depend on me. I'm the first child and the only one working. My parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, and I've been responsible for my 3 siblings since then. The 2 youngest are still in secondary school. Asterisk. Asterisk, every night, I replay that morning in my head. I see your face as we laughed at you. I hear your voice asking for simple human dignity. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed not just because you were the CEO, but because even if you had been nobody important, what we did was wrong. Asterisk. Asterisk, I thought I was a good person, Mrs. Nwosu. I go to church every Sunday. I pray. I give offerings. But that day, I realized that religion without compassion is empty. I forgot that Christ himself said, "Whatever you do to the least of these, you do unto me." Asterisk. Asterisk, I don't ask for my job back. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not sorry I got caught, but sorry for who I revealed myself to be. Asterisk. With sincere apology. Chioma Okonkwo. Mrs. Nwosu set the letter down slowly, her chest tight. She reached for another envelope. This one was from Ngozi. Asterisco diarma, asterisco. Asterisk, I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try. Since that day, I haven't been able to sleep properly. Every time I close my eyes, I see you standing at that counter, asking for help, and I see myself laughing. Asterisk. Asterisk, someone recorded the whole thing on their phone. They posted it on Twitter and Instagram. Within hours, it went viral. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. People calling me wicked, heartless, cruel. My own family saw it. My mother, who raised me to respect elders, couldn't even look at me for days. Asterisk. Asterisk, I received threats. Hateful messages. People recognized me on the street and shouted insults. I had to delete all my social media accounts. I feel like the whole world hates me. Asterisk. Asterisk, but the worst part isn't what others think. It's what I know about myself. I look down on you because of your clothes, your appearance. I measured your worth by your rapping and decided you were worthless. And in doing so, I showed how worthless my own values were. Asterisk. Asterisk, my father hasn't spoken to me since he saw the video. He told me he's ashamed to have raised such a daughter. Those words hurt more than losing my job. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that this lesson, as painful as it is, has changed me. I'll never look at another human being that way again. Asterisk. Ngozi Adeyemi. Mrs. Nwosu's eyes were damp as she reached for the third letter. Blessing's handwriting was smaller, neater, almost painfully careful. Respected Mrs. Nwosu, I am writing to you not to ask for anything, but to confess something I think you should know. Asterisk, that morning, when you walked into the bank, I didn't just laugh at you. I felt superior. I looked at your muddy wrapper and broken slippers and felt grateful that I wasn't you. I felt like I had achieved something because I could afford nice weaves and designer handbags. Asterisk. Asterisk, but the truth is, before I got that job, I was struggling too. 3 years ago, I was selling provisions from a small table in Oshodi Market. I know what it's like to be looked down on. I know how it feels when people act like you're invisible because you don't have money. Asterisk. Asterisk, yet the moment I got a little success, I forgot all that. I became exactly the kind of person who used to hurt me, and that realization has broken me. Asterisk. Asterisk, since I lost my job, I've been volunteering at a shelter for homeless women in Mushin. Every day, I help serve food to elderly women who have nothing. Every time I look at them, I see your face that morning, and I'm reminded of how close any of us are to being in their position. Asterisk. Asterisk, life is fragile, Ma. Success is temporary. The only thing that lasts is how we treat each other. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm sorry for forgetting that lesson. Thank you for teaching it to me, even though I had to lose everything to learn it. Asterisk. Blessing Okafor. Mrs. Nwosu set the last letter down and stared out the window for a long time. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The lagoon reflected the colors like liquid fire. She thought about her own journey. She hadn't always been a billionaire CEO. She had started with nothing, a young woman with a vision and a small loan from a sympathetic banker who saw potential in her business plan. She remembered the people who had helped her along the way. The market woman who let her use her stall as an address when banks required a physical location. The old man who taught her bookkeeping when she couldn't afford to hire an accountant. The pastor who lent her the church hall for her first customer meetings. None of them had been wealthy. None of them had been powerful. But they had seen her struggling and chosen to help. And what did I do? She whispered to herself. I became so focused on building my empire that I forgot what it was built on. Compassion. Second chances. Seeing potential in people that others overlooked. She pressed the intercom button. Amara, please come in. When her assistant entered, Mrs. Nwosu said, I need you to locate Chioma Okonkwo, Ngozi Adeyemi, and Blessing Okafor. Find out where they live and invite them to come to the Victoria Island branch tomorrow. At 2 p.m., tell them it's important. Amara's eyes widened slightly. Ma, those are the staff who were dismissed. I know who they are, Mrs. Nwosu said gently. Please make the calls. That evening, 3 phones rang in different parts of Lagos. 3 women answered with trembling hands. Three voices delivered the same message. Mrs. Nwosu requests your presence tomorrow. Chioma sat on the floor of her small room in Surulere, staring at her phone long after the call ended. What could this mean? Was she in more trouble? Would Mrs. Nwosu sue her? Ngozi paced her family's flat in Yaba, her mother watching with worried eyes. What does she want? Her mother asked. Ngozi shook her head. I don't know, Mama. I don't know. Blessing knelt by her bed and prayed. God, whatever comes tomorrow, give me the strength to face it with dignity. None of them slept well that night. The next afternoon, Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing arrived at the Victoria Island branch separately, each trying to be invisible, each carrying the weight of shame and uncertainty. They gathered awkwardly in the reception area, unable to meet each other's eyes. The same security guard, Emeka, who had thrown Mrs. Nwosu out that day, now stood watching them with an unreadable expression. The new customer service staff watched them curiously, whispering behind their hands. Everyone knew who these three were. Their story had become legend in the bank. At exactly 2 p.m., Emmanuel Okafor appeared. He looked uncomfortable as he addressed them. Ladies, please follow me. Mrs. Nwosu is waiting in the conference room. They followed him through the familiar corridors, past the banking hall where everything had fallen apart, up the stairs to the executive conference room on the second floor. Emmanuel opened the door and stepped aside. The conference room was elegant. A long mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the busy street below. And at the head of the table sat Mrs. Nwosu. She was dressed differently today. No muddy wrapper, no broken slippers. She wore a beautiful navy blue lace outfit with matching gelly, gold jewelry glinting at her neck and wrists. She looked every inch the powerful CEO she was. Sit down, she said simply, gesturing to the chairs. They sat, their bodies rigid with tension. Mrs. Nwosu studied each of them for a long moment. Chioma had lost weight, her face drawn and tired. Ngozi's eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying recently. Blessing sat with perfect posture, but her hands trembled slightly in her lap. I read your letters, Mrs. Nwosu began. All of them. Every word. The three women held their breath. You wrote about shame, regret, lessons learned. You wrote about how this experience changed you. She paused. I believe you. Chioma's eyes filled with tears. Ngozi bit her lip hard. Blessing blinked rapidly, trying to stay composed. Do you know why I came to that branch the day dressed as I was? Mrs. Nwosu asked. They shook their heads mutely. Because I do it regularly, she said. At least once a quarter, I visit different branches in disguise. Sometimes I dress as a market woman. Sometimes as a corporate worker. Sometimes, like that day, as someone the world has forgotten. She stood and walked to the window, her back to them. I do it because I need to know the truth about my bank. Not the performance they give me when they know I'm coming, but the reality of how we treat people when we think no one important is watching. She turned back to face them. That day, you all failed the test. Spectacularly. But in the weeks since, you've shown something else. Remorse. Growth. Change. Ma. Chioma whispered, her voice breaking, we're so sorry. We know sorry isn't enough, but we... Mrs. Nwosu raised her hand. I'm not finished. Chioma fell silent. You made a mistake. A serious one that revealed character flaws you didn't even know you had. But mistakes are only failures if we don't learn from them. She returned to her seat at the table. I've been thinking about my own journey. About all the people who gave me second chances when I didn't deserve them. About the banker who approved my loan when every other bank had rejected me. About the landlord who didn't evict me when I was 3 months behind on rent. She looked at each of them in turn. If those people had judged me only by my worst moment, I wouldn't be sitting here today. This bank wouldn't exist. The thousands of people we employ would be jobless. The millions we've loaned to small businesses wouldn't have changed lives. Ma, what are you saying? Ngozi asked tentatively. Mrs. Nwosu smiled. A real smile that softened her entire face. I'm saying that I'm giving you a second chance. But not in the same positions. And not without conditions. The three women sat forward, hope and disbelief warring in their expressions. You will be reinstated, but you'll start in lower positions. Chioma, you'll work as a junior teller. Ngozi, you'll be in the records department. Blessing, you'll be in customer complaints. These are not glamorous positions, but they're honest ones. Ma, Blessing gasped. But Mrs. Nwosu continued, her voice firming. You will also be required to complete a mandatory training program. You'll attend weekly workshops on ethics, customer service, and humility. You'll volunteer monthly at homeless shelters and soup kitchens. And you'll report directly to me quarterly about what you're learning. Yes, Ma. They chorused, tears streaming down their faces now. If at any point during the next year I discover that you've returned to your old ways, if I hear one report of you treating anyone with disrespect, you will be terminated permanently. No second chances after this one. Is that clear? Yes, Ma, they said again, their voices thick with emotion. And one more thing, Mrs. Nwosu added. You will tell your story. I want you to speak at staff meetings, at training sessions, at community events. I want people to hear about your mistake and your redemption. Not to shame you, but to teach others. Will you do that? Chioma was sobbing openly now. Yes, Ma. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ngozi covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. God bless you, Ma. God bless you. Blessing stood and knelt beside Mrs. Nwosu's chair. Ma, I promise you, I swear on my life, you won't regret this. I'll make you proud. I'll prove that your faith in us wasn't wasted. Mrs. Nwosu touched her head gently. Stand up, my dear. In this bank, we don't kneel to anyone. We stand together as equals. As the three women composed themselves, wiping their tears and trying to process this unexpected grace, Mrs. Nwosu stood. You start Monday. Report to Emmanuel at 8 a.m. He'll handle your paperwork and orientation. Ma, Chioma said, her voice steadier now. Why? Why would you do this for us after what we did? Mrs. Nwosu was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I believe in redemption. I believe that people can change. And because the world has enough judgment. What we need more of is grace. She gathered her belongings, a designer handbag today, not the worn one from that morning 3 weeks ago, and moved toward the door. Oh, and ladies, she paused at the threshold. The world will be watching you. Some people will want you to fail so they can say, I told you so. Don't give them that satisfaction. Be better than they expect. Be better than you were. Be the version of yourself that this second chance is calling you to become. With that, she left, leaving three women stunned, grateful, and determined to prove themselves worthy of the grace they'd been shown. 6 months passed. The transformation at Unity Trust Bank's Victoria Island branch was remarkable. But the most significant changes were in three women who had been given a second chance. Chioma arrived at work each morning at 7:30 a.m., a full half hour before her shift started. As a junior teller, she handled basic transactions, but she did it with such care and attention that customers often requested her window specifically. She had developed a reputation for patience, especially with elderly customers who needed extra time. One morning, an old man came to her window. He was confused about his account balance, asking the same questions repeatedly. The customer behind him in line groaned audibly. Chioma smiled gently at the old man. Take your time, sir. We're here to serve you. Let me explain everything clearly. She spent 20 minutes with him, patiently walking him through each transaction, explaining in simple terms until his face cleared with understanding. Thank you, my daughter, he said, his eyes moist. You are very kind. After he left, the impatient customer approached her window. You know, the woman said grudgingly, that was really nice of you. Most tellers would have rushed him. Chioma smiled. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, madam, no matter how long it takes. Ngozi, working in records, had discovered she had a talent for organization and detail that had been wasted in her previous role. She'd implemented a new filing system that made document retrieval 40% faster. Emmanuel had commended her work in front of the entire staff. But what really changed her was the monthly volunteer work. Every third Saturday, she went to a shelter in Mushin where homeless elderly people received meals and care. One Saturday, she was serving soup when an old woman looked up at her and said, You have a kind face, my daughter. Ngozi paused, remembering the face she had made when mocking Mrs. Nwosu. "Thank you, Ma. But I haven't always been kind." "None of us have, dear," the old woman said wisely. "What matters is who we choose to become." Those words stayed with Ngozi. She started bringing extra items to the shelter: soap, clothing, blankets she purchased with her own salary. Her family noticed the change too. Her father, who had been so ashamed, now bragged about her volunteer work to his friends. Blessing, in customer complaints, had found her calling. She listened to angry customers with genuine empathy, often diffusing situations that might have escalated. She had a gift for making people feel heard. One particularly difficult afternoon, a woman stormed into the bank, shouting about an error in her account. Her face was red with fury, and other staff members shrank back. Blessing approached her calmly. "Ma, please come with me to a private office. Let me hear you properly and see how I can help." In the quiet office, the woman's anger gradually dissolved into tears. "I'm sorry for shouting," she said. "It's just that money was for my daughter's school fees. I thought it was lost." Blessing held her hand. "You understand, Ma. Let me check everything right now. We'll solve this together." It turned out to be a simple error, fixed within minutes. The woman left grateful and calm. "How do you do it?" a colleague asked Blessing later. "How do you stay so patient?" Blessing smiled. "I remember that everyone has a story. Everyone is fighting battles we can't see. The least we can do is treat them with kindness." The three women met regularly for lunch, forming an unlikely friendship forged in shared failure and redemption. They encouraged each other, kept each other accountable, and reminded each other of how far they'd come. "Sometimes I still have nightmares about that day," Chioma confessed one afternoon as they ate jollof rice in the staff canteen. "Me too," Ngozi admitted. "But then I remember who I'm becoming. Not who I was. We're not that same people anymore," Blessing said firmly. "And we never will be again." Mrs. Nwosu had been watching. Quietly, without their knowledge, she received regular reports from Emmanuel about their progress. She read customer feedback forms that mentioned Chioma's patience, saw the efficiency reports highlighting Ngozi's improvements, reviewed the complaint resolution statistics that showed Blessing's success rate. But more importantly, she made her own observations. She visited the branch in disguise twice more, once as a well-dressed businesswoman, once as a middle-aged man in work clothes. Both times, she watched the three women serve customers with genuine care. On a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 year after she had given them their second chance, Mrs. Nwosu called Emmanuel to her office. "I want to see Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing today at 4 p.m. All staff should be present in the banking hall. I have an announcement." Emmanuel's eyebrows rose. "Ma, is everything all right?" "Everything is perfect," she said with a mysterious smile. Word spread quickly through the branch. The three women were terrified. "What if she's firing us for real this time?" Ngozi whispered. "We haven't done anything wrong," Chioma said, but her voice trembled. "Maybe the year is up and she's just ending our probation," Blessing suggested, trying to sound hopeful. At 4 p.m., the entire staff gathered in the banking hall. Some customers, sensing something important was happening, lingered to watch. Mrs. Nwosu entered through the glass doors, this time dressed in a stunning green lace outfit with gold accessories, looking every inch the powerful CEO. "Good afternoon, everyone," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the hall. "Good afternoon, Ma," they chorused. 1 year ago, Mrs. Nwosu began, 3 members of our staff made a terrible mistake. They treated me with disrespect, mockery, and cruelty when I came to this branch dressed as a poor woman. They judged me by my appearance and found me worthless. Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing stood together, their heads bowed, shame washing over them again despite all their growth. "I dismissed them," Mrs. Nwosu continued, "as I had every right to do. But then something happened. They wrote to me. They showed genuine remorse. They demonstrated that they understood not just that they had been caught, but that what they had done was fundamentally wrong." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I gave them second chance. I brought them back, not to their old positions, but to new ones where they could learn and grow. And I've been watching them carefully this entire year." The 3 women held their breath. Chioma Okonkwo, Mrs. Nwosu called out. Step forward. Chioma moved forward on shaking legs, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. This year, you have received more positive customer feedback than any other teller in this branch. You have shown exceptional patience, care, and dedication. You have proven that people can change. She pulled an envelope from her bag. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Senior Customer Service Officer with a 40% salary increase. Chioma's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Ma, thank you. Thank you so much. Ngozi Adeyemi stepped forward. Ngozi moved forward, her legs like jelly. Your organizational improvements have been noticed, not just in this branch, but at headquarters. Your volunteer work has inspired other staff members to get involved in community service. You have shown that redemption is real. She produced another envelope. You are promoted to records manager with a 45% salary increase. Ngozi couldn't speak. She just nodded, crying openly. Blessing Okafor stepped forward. Blessing approached, her whole body trembling. Your work in customer complaints has been extraordinary. You have the highest resolution rate in the entire bank. You've turned angry customers into loyal advocates. You have demonstrated that grace given can become grace shared. Another envelope appeared. You are promoted to head of customer relations with a 50% salary increase. Blessing fell to her knees right there in the banking hall, sobbing. Thank you, Ma. Thank you for seeing something in us when we couldn't see it ourselves. Mrs. Nwosu gestured for her to stand. I told you before, in this bank we don't kneel. We stand as equals. As Blessing rose, Mrs. Nwosu addressed the entire hall again. Let this be a lesson to everyone here. Yes, I believe in accountability. Yes, I believe in consequences. But I also believe in second chances. I believe in redemption. I believe that our worst moment doesn't have to define us if we're willing to do the hard work of change. She turned back to the three women. You three took your second chance and transformed it into something beautiful. You didn't just get your jobs back. You became better versions of yourselves. That's what grace does. It doesn't just restore what was lost. It creates something new and better. The applause that erupted in the banking hall was thunderous. Customers joined in. Even the security guard, Emeka, was clapping, tears in his eyes. Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing hugged each other, crying and laughing at the same time. Their journey from disgrace to dignity was complete. But Mrs. Nwosu wasn't done. There's one more thing, she said, and the hall quieted again. I want you three to head up a new initiative, the Second Chance Program. We'll be partnering with shelters, rehabilitation centers, and community organizations to provide jobs and training to people who are trying to rebuild their lives. People who have made mistakes. People who need grace. She looked at them with such warmth that they felt it like physical heat. Who better to run this program than three women who understand what it means to fall and rise again? As the months rolled by following their promotions, the three women threw themselves into the Second Chance program with passion. They interviewed candidates, designed training modules, and personally mentored those who came through the program. But it was Chioma who found something unexpected through the work. Love. His name was Tunde Adebayo, and he came to them through a referral from the homeless shelter where Ngozi volunteered. He was 32 years old, tall, with kind eyes that carried the weight of difficult experiences. I'm a reformed addict, he told them honestly during his interview. I lost everything. My job, my family's trust, my self-respect. I've been clean for 18 months now. I'm just looking for a chance to prove I can be better. Something in his story resonated with Chioma. She saw herself in his eyes. The shame, the determination, the desperate hope for redemption. We'll give you that chance, she said. Welcome to Unity Trust Bank. Tunde started as a janitor, arriving early each morning to clean the banking hall before customers arrived. But Chioma noticed something. During his breaks, he sat with a book, advanced mathematics, financial management, economics textbooks. You like to read? She asked him one morning. He looked up, slightly embarrassed. I used to be an accountant before. Everything fell apart. I'm trying to remember what I knew. Maybe someday I can work my way up. What if that someday could be sooner? Chioma said impulsively. I can help you. I can tutor you during lunch breaks. Refresh your knowledge. Help you get certified again. Tun's eyes widened. You would do that? Why? Chioma smiled. Because someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. Now, I want to pass that grace forward. And so, an unexpected friendship began. Every lunch break, they sat in the staff canteen. Chioma with her notebook, Tun with his textbooks, working through accounting principles and banking regulations. Ngozi and Blessing watched with knowing smiles. Our Chioma is falling in love. Ngozi teased one day when Tun was out of earshot. I am not. Chioma protested, but her cheeks flushed. You light up when he walks in a room, Blessing observed. And he looks at you like you hung the moon. He's just grateful for the help, Chioma said, but even she didn't sound convinced. The truth was, somewhere between teaching him about balance sheets and discussing his dreams for the future, something had shifted. They started sharing more than just academic knowledge. They shared their stories, the pain of their pasts, the hope for their futures. I was so arrogant before I fell, Tun told her one day. I thought I was better than people who struggled. Then I became one of them and learned what real strength looks like. I know exactly what you mean, Chioma said softly. I mocked an elderly woman for being poor. Turns out she was my boss, the CEO of this bank. I lost everything, but she gave me another chance. Mrs. Nwosu? Tun's eyes widened. The founder? She's the one who approved my hiring. She personally reviewed my application. They sat in companionable silence, two souls who had been broken and were healing together. 6 months later, Tun passed his certification exams with flying colors. Mrs. Nwosu herself called him to her office. Mr. Adebayo, I've been watching your progress. I'm promoting you to junior accountant. You've earned it. Tun's voice shook as he said, Thank you, Ma. I won't let you down. I know you won't, she said with a smile. And Tun? Ask her. Ma, Chioma, I see how you look at each other. Life is short. Don't waste time when you've found something precious. That evening, Tun asked Chioma to take a walk with him after work. They strolled along the Lagos waterfront as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Chioma, he began, his voice nervous. You saved my life, not just by helping me get certified, but by seeing me as a human being when everyone else saw a failure. Tun, let me finish, he said gently. I know I don't have much to offer. I'm still rebuilding, but I love you. I love your kindness, your strength, your willingness to see the best in people. I love who I am when I'm with you. Chioma's eyes filled with tears. Tun, you have everything to offer. You have a good heart. You've proven that people can change, can rise above their worst moments. And I love you too. I've been afraid to say it, but I do. He took her hands in his. Then let's build something beautiful together. Two broken people who found grace, finding each other. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, let's do that. Their kiss, there on the waterfront with Lagos buzzing around them, tasted like hope and new beginnings. 1 year later, the same banking hall that had once witnessed humiliation and tears was transformed into a celebration venue. Chioma and Tun had decided to hold their wedding reception at Unity Trust Bank, not just because of budget constraints, but because it symbolized their journey. This is where it all began, Chioma explained to her confused relatives. Where I fell, where I was lifted up, where I found love. It has to be here. The banking hall was decorated beautifully, white and gold drapes hanging from the ceiling, flowers everywhere. The marble floor polished to a mirror shine. Round tables with elegant centerpieces filled the space. A stage had been erected where the customer service desk used to be. Mrs. Nwosu had not only given her blessing, but had insisted on personally overseeing the arrangements. She had even paid for the catering, a gesture that left Chioma sobbing with gratitude. You've been like a mother to me, Chioma told her. After I lost my parents, I thought I would never have that guidance again. But you've given me so much more than a job. You've given me a future. The wedding ceremony at church had been beautiful, but this reception was where everyone wanted to be. The entire bank staff attended, along with volunteers from the shelters, former Second Chance program participants now thriving in various careers, and even some of the customers who had witnessed that fateful day. As Chioma and Tund entered the hall, everyone rose to their feet, applauding. Chioma wore a stunning white wedding gown with intricate beading, her makeup flawless, her joy radiating. Tund, in his crisp tuxedo, looked like a completely different person from the broken man who had walked through the door seeking a janitor position. Ngozi and Blessing, serving as matrons of honor in matching purple dresses, flanked Chioma as she walked to the high table. They were crying happy tears, remembering their own journey with their friend. Who would have thought? Ngozi whispered to Blessing that the worst day of our lives would lead to this? God works in mysterious ways, Blessing replied. When it was time for speeches, Mrs. Nwosu took the microphone. The hall fell silent with respect. I've attended many weddings, she began, her voice clear and strong. But this one is special to me. Not because of the decorations or the food, but because of what it represents. She looked at Chioma and Tund sitting at the high table. 2 years ago, a young woman worked in this bank. She was capable, efficient, but she had one critical flaw. She measured people's worth by their appearance. When I walked in dressed as a poor woman, she mocked me. She laughed at me. She had me thrown out. The guests shifted uncomfortably. Some had heard this story, but hearing it from Mrs. Nwosu herself was powerful. I dismissed her. She lost everything, her job, her income, her reputation. By all worldly standards, her story should have ended there in failure and shame. But instead, something remarkable happened. Mrs. Nwosu's voice grew tender. She took responsibility for her actions. She didn't make excuses or blame others. She looked at herself honestly and didn't like what she saw. So she changed. Not because she wanted her job back, but because she wanted to be better. Chioma was crying openly now, Tund holding her hand tightly. I gave her a second chance, yes. But what she did with that chance, that was all her. She transformed herself through hard work, humility, and genuine repentance. And in that process of transformation, she met this young man. Mrs. Nwosu turned to Tund. Tund came to us broken, tried to rebuild his life after addiction destroyed everything. Society had written him off, but Chioma saw beyond his past. She saw his potential. She invested time in helping him study, encouraged him when he wanted to give up, believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. She gave him the same grace she had received. She raised her glass. Today, we're not just celebrating a wedding. We're celebrating redemption. We're celebrating the truth that our worst moment doesn't define us. We're celebrating the power of second chances. And we're celebrating love. Real love that sees beyond surface appearances and values the content of character. The applause was thunderous. Guests were crying, moved by the story's power. Chioma and Tund, Mrs. Nwosu concluded, may your marriage be a continuing testament to grace. May you always remember where you came from and use that memory to treat others with kindness. And may you build a family rooted in love, humility, and compassion. To Chioma and Tund, everyone shouted, raising their glasses. The party that followed was joyful and raucous. Traditional dancers performed. The DJ played everything from gospel music to Afrobeats. People ate jollof rice, pounded yam, pepper soup, and endless plates of small chops. But the most touching moment came late in the evening when elderly women from the homeless shelter arrived, women that Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing had served during their volunteer work. Mrs. Nwosu had personally arranged their transportation and ensured they were fed and comfortable. One old woman, bent with age, approached the high table. Chioma immediately left her seat to kneel before her in respect. My daughter, the old woman said, touching Chioma's head in blessing. I remember when you first came to serve us. I saw the shame in your eyes, the determination to be better. Today I see joy. You've earned it. Go and be happy. Chioma hugged her tightly, and in that embrace, she felt the fullness of her journey, from pride to shame to redemption to love. 3 years after the wedding, Chioma sat in her living room in their modest but comfortable apartment in Lekki Phase 1. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, 8 months pregnant with their first child. Tund had continued to excel at the bank, rising to senior accountant. Chioma, now heading the Second Chance program full-time, had helped over 100 people find employment and rebuild their lives. But despite their professional success and happy marriage, the past 3 years had held one persistent pain: the inability to have a child. They had tried. They had prayed. Month after month, year after year, the disappointment came. Maybe we're being punished for our past, Chioma had whispered one night after another negative test. Don't ever say that, Tund had replied firmly. We've been forgiven. God doesn't punish people he's forgiven. Then, unexpectedly, after they had made peace with the possibility of remaining childless, it happened. A positive test. Confirmation from the doctor. A tiny heartbeat on the ultrasound. The joy was indescribable. Now, as Chioma sat rubbing her belly, feeling the baby kick, she reflected on the miraculous journey her life had taken. From the proud girl who mocked an old woman, to the broken woman begging for forgiveness, to the redeemed worker earning her way back, to the wife of a good man, to a mother-to-be. God's plans are amazing, she whispered to her unborn child. You almost didn't exist because I almost threw away my future with my pride. But grace caught me. And now you're the proof that redemption is real. The doorbell rang. When Tund answered, he found Mrs. Nwosu standing there, holding a large gift basket. Ma, they both exclaimed in surprise. You didn't tell us you were coming. I wanted to surprise you, she said with a warm smile, entering their home. She had been there many times before. She treated Chioma almost like a daughter now. Come, sit, Chioma said, trying to rise from the couch. No, stay comfortable, Mrs. Nwosu insisted. I just wanted to bring these things for the baby. The basket was filled with expensive baby clothes, toys, and supplies. Ma, you've already done so much for us, Tund protested. Nonsense. This is a blessing, not a burden. I'm excited about this baby. As they sat together drinking tea, Mrs. Nwosu studied Chioma thoughtfully. You know, she began, I've been thinking about that day. The day you mocked me in the bank. Chioma's face clouded with familiar shame. Ma, I'm so sorry. Even after all these years. Let me finish, Mrs. Nwosu interrupted gently. I've been thinking about it, and I realize now that it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Both Chioma and Tund looked shocked. Best thing, Ma? Chioma repeated. Yes, because it reminded me who I was building my empire for. It wasn't for the wealthy elite who already have everything. It was for ordinary people who need a chance. People like you were then, Tund. People who make mistakes but deserve the opportunity to grow. She reached out and took Chioma's hand. If you hadn't treated me that way, I wouldn't have been forced to examine my own organization so critically. I wouldn't have started the Second Chance program that has now helped hundreds. You didn't just change. You helped change the entire culture of my bank. Tears ran down Chioma's cheeks. Ma, I don't deserve such kindness. That's the beautiful thing about grace, my dear. None of us deserve it. That's what makes it grace. Mrs. Nwosu stood to leave, but before going, she said one more thing. When this baby is born, I want to be the grandmother. I know I'm not blood, but I've watched you both grow. I've invested in your lives, and I want to be part of this child's life. Ma, Tund said, his voice thick with emotion, we would be honored. We've already decided. If it's a girl, we're naming her Adiz. Mrs. Nwosu's eyes widened. After me? Yes, Ma, Chioma confirmed. Because you gave us life when we were dead. You showed us grace when we deserved judgment. This child exists because of the second chance you gave us. She should carry your name. Mrs. Nwosu couldn't speak. She simply pulled them both into a tight embrace. 3 souls connected by a journey from shame to redemption to family. 5 years later, little Adiz was a bright, energetic child with her mother's eyes and her father's gentle spirit. The Second Chance program had expanded to 12 branches across Lagos and was being considered for national rollout. Ngozi had gotten married too, to a man she met through the volunteer program, a former homeless person who had turned his life around and now ran a successful small business. Blessing had been promoted to vice president of customer relations for the entire bank. But the most significant moment came on a Tuesday morning when Mrs. Nwosu decided to visit the Victoria Island branch unannounced. This time, she dressed normally, elegant clothes, expensive jewelry, looking every inch the billionaire CEO. When she entered the banking hall, everyone snapped to attention. "Good morning, Ma." "Good morning," she replied warmly. She observed the staff serving customers. Every single person treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance. Poor or rich, young or old, each customer received the same courteous attention. She smiled. The culture had truly changed. Chioma, now the bank's director of social impact, was visiting the branch that day for a meeting. When she saw Mrs. Nwosu, she approached immediately. "Ma, you're here. You should have told me. I would have prepared." "That's exactly why I didn't tell you," Mrs. Nwosu said with a grin. "I wanted to see the reality, not the performance." They sat in the conference room, and Mrs. Nwosu pulled out a folder. "I have something for you," she said. Inside was a legal document. As Chioma read it, her hands began to shake. "Ma, I'm making you a partner in the bank," Mrs. Nwosu said. 5% equity stake. You've earned it through your work with the Second Chance program. You've transformed not just yourself, but our entire organization. "Ma, I can't accept this." "You can and you will. I'm not getting any younger, Chioma. I need people I trust to carry this vision forward. People who understand what this bank truly stands for." Chioma was crying now. "Ma, from the day you threw me out to today, from rock bottom to this, I still can't believe it's real." Mrs. Nwosu wiped Chioma's tears gently. "Believe it, my daughter. This is what grace does. It doesn't just restore what was lost. It multiplies it beyond imagination." That evening, as Mrs. Nwosu drove home through Lagos traffic, she thought about that Tuesday morning years ago when she had walked in her own bank dressed as a poor woman. She thought about the mockery, the laughter, the humiliation, and she smiled, because that day of shame had become the foundation for something beautiful. It had revealed the truth, sparked change, and ultimately created a legacy that would impact thousands of lives. She had learned something profound. Sometimes the worst days are actually seeds for the best days. Sometimes humiliation is the fertilizer for transformation. Sometimes what looks like an ending is actually a beginning. "Thank you, God," she whispered as the Lagos sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, "for using even my pain to create purpose." And somewhere across the city, in modest homes and apartments, 3 women, Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing, were putting their children to bed, telling them stories about grace, second chances, and the amazing truth that who you are today doesn't have to be who you are tomorrow. The story that began with mockery had ended with redemption. The journey that started with shame had concluded in dignity. And the woman who was once thrown out of a bank now helped run it. Because that's what grace does. It transforms everything it touches.